recovery into long-term recovery, so much of the time what's required is helping others, is reaching out and getting into the industries that we have gotten into. Can you speak to that a little bit on how you made that decision, or how you got to where you are?
Yeah, so thank you so much for asking. And, I don't mind sharing my story now, but I know that it's really hard to share your story when you first step into recovery sometimes. For some people, it's easier than others, but for me, it wasn't easy when I stepped into recovery, because that's why I love talking during September in National Celebrate Recovery Month, because I experienced mental health concerns at a very young age, experienced some trauma when I was a teenager, and and was taught at a very young age how to manage my mental health and my traumas with the use of drugs and alcohol. And those were my coping tools for several years, and they're not great coping tools. And so um, when I wasn't in recovery, everybody else had those same coping tools. And when you think about how do you find a way out of that space that you're in and find different coping tools when everybody around you is using the same coping tools, it's not easy to navigate through. And that's why it's important for us to come together and talk about how did we do it. And so I'm here today to tell you that the way that I stepped into recovery and found different coping tools is by um, finally making the decision that this isn't the way I want to live anymore. And that just because this is what I'm surrounded in, and just because it's what everybody I know is also doing to help themselves, I don't like the way it makes me feel anymore. And so I needed to make a change for myself and for my children. And so the thing that I did was I made the decision that I wasn't going to use drugs and alcohol anymore. And when I made that decision, I worked in a bar. I was a bartender. You know how hard it is to quit drinking and using drugs when you work in a bar that you drink and use drugs in?
I'm trying to think of easier places, and I don't know if I can. Or more difficult places, and I don't know if I can.
So what I found is that as I was determined to find my sobriety and maintain my sobriety, I started encouraging people to drink water more. Like, it started breaking my heart to see people intoxicated. And so I was like, well, let's slow down a little bit. Here's a glass of water. And so my boss told me, hey, Wendy, your sales are really down. And I said, you know what? They are. And maybe this isn't the right place for me anymore,
I have
because
to
it was
ask,
really hard.
did the tips go down?
Yeah, the tips went down too.
Yeah.
So, because you tip based on your bill, and if you're not selling the alcohol, they're not going to tip you on something they're not selling you.
Yeah.
So, so I had to find a different job in order to continue on the path, and that meant a pay cut, because not only did my tips go down from being a bartender, but I had been in the service field for so many years that was my pretty much prior experience. I worked in other little odd jobs here and there, in offices, and in call centers, but my primary career had been working in the service field. And so, I had to take a pay cut to find a different opportunity to maintain my recovery. And when I stepped into my new career path, I didn't want anybody to know about my former. I wanted a fresh start. I didn't want people to judge me. And so I didn't talk to people about my prior substance use and alcohol use. And when people would invite me to happy hour, I'd be like, oh, no, I got to get home. I got to cook dinner for the kids, right? When really my kids were at their dad's for the weekends. I was just going home to an empty house. So, you find your ways to navigate through. And when you don't feel comfortable talking to people, but you don't feel comfortable going into those settings anymore, it's you're really torn back and forth, right? What do I do? And how do I find this new circle of people to engage with? Because the other thing that you got to remember is that you got to stop associating with all the other people that you were participating in those negative coping strategies with. And so, I wasn't hanging out with my friends anymore. I had this new opportunity to meet new people, but of course, you tend to be drawn to the same type of people. So the people that I was drawn to have communications with at this new employer were the people that use drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
So it became kind of lonely for a while, quite honestly. I finally began slowly finding other sober people to hang out with, and it gets easier. It's just slow, and you got to have a lot of patience, and you got to have a lot of determination, because it would have been so easy for me to say, okay, yeah, just one. But one leads to another and another and another. And then before you know it, you're right back down there. And I didn't want to be right back down there again, because it wasn't the first time I had stopped when I had finally stopped for good. And that career and those relationships that I built opened up doors. And as I continued on in my career from that point forward, doors just continued to open. And I feel very fortunate and blessed to have encountered the people that I've encountered in my life and the relationships that I've built that have helped encourage me to go through some of those doors that were open, because just because a door opens doesn't mean you step through it. And so I thank the people in my life that encouraged me to step through those doors. And one of the biggest things that helped me is that for several years, I never did talk about my substance use. And then I was sitting in an all-staff meeting for an agency. I worked at a multi-million-dollar organization, and the CEO for that agency was talking about her own substance use recovery. And the day after, I had a conversation with her, and I said, if you can do it, so can I. I mean, and she knew my history. But I began talking to people about my substance use and my mental health and my journey, and even more doors opened. I was like, how is this possible? Because, in my other conversations, I had talked with people in the organization I was working with who, when they talked about their mental health diagnoses and their recovery paths, they found doors closing for them. And so that always laid with me, right? Like, I didn't want doors to close. I liked that doors were opening. I didn't want doors to close. That's why I didn't talk about stuff. But when the CEO did, and I thought, I'm stepping through that door, and doors just continue to open. And I took that and I ran, and I began talking about my recovery, and I learned how to talk about my recovery in a way that's effective and meaningful. And I became trained in how to train other people to talk about it. And I became an advocate rather than just trying to maintain my own recovery. I began being an advocate to help others find their recovery, and moved into this field where the most recent door to open for me was to be offered the opportunity to be the program manager at the New Mexico Crisis and Access Line, because I was such a big advocate for the program before I even worked for the program. And so I felt really blessed when they offered me that opportunity 5.5 years ago. And I'm really glad to still be here and continue to tell people that the New Mexico Crisis and Access Line is here to hear you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you don't know where to take your first step into recovery, give us a call, and we'll help you navigate through that.
Awesome. And we absolutely love that. And I know that very well. That, I think it's a very normal thing, is to fear, expressing our vulnerabilities and, our struggles in life. But the most important thing right now is to express that while we're going through isolation, COVID, and depression, and hurt, and stress, and politics, and everything else that's driving all of us crazy, is to be vulnerable with that. And we want more messages like yours. We want as many people as we can to hear as many stories as they can, to know that it is possible. Because as you mentioned in your story, when you quit everything and you were determined to stay quit from everything, you knew that there had been times before where you had quit and then you had started over, and then you realized you have to climb that very difficult and very tall ladder again. So when we're talking about, you know,
He
a
froze.
time where people are tempted to going through in the current day, it's not worth climbing that ladder again. It's too difficult. So that's why we have the New Mexico Crisis and Access Line. So tell us, you touched on it, but I really want everybody to know when they pick up the phone and they dial the number that I'm going to put on the screen, what they can expect.
You can expect somebody that cares, that is here to hear you, that is genuinely interested in how to help you, and generally understands what you're going through. All of the staff on our crisis line are trained professionals that have some sort of college degree in a behavioral health field, and regularly every week attend additional trainings to enhance and continue their knowledge on how to support people, and that we understand that it's sometimes hard to have these conversations. And that's why we also have our peer-to-peer Warmline, because sometimes when it's hard to have these conversations, it's easier to talk to somebody that also has been through what you have. And that's not to say that our staff on our crisis line haven't been through something similar. It's just that that's not the role that they carry to share those experiences as a part of their behavioral health professional licensures and credentials that they carry. But it is a part of the role of the people on the peer-to-peer Warmline. And that program's not available 24/7, but it is available in the evenings from 3:30 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. every day to call, and from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. every day to text. And all of the people that answer on that line went to the School of Hard Knocks, and they recovered from their own personal mental health diagnosis as well. And they are in recovery, and they're resilient, and they're certified by the Office of Peer Recovery and Engagement, who I understand you just had on the program yesterday. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's a great program that helps people who aren't certain where to go once they're stepped into their recovery and have had 2 or more years of recovery. How do I become this advocate for others? And so the Office of Peer Recovery and Engagement helps people, such as our staff on our Warmline, to navigate through understanding opportunities also. And sometimes it helps to talk to somebody who has been there and recovered, and you get various different aspects of understanding that it is hard, but you know what? If you try, then you might have a different tomorrow. And it is hard. And if you are encouraged by somebody else that you know has gotten through it also, then if they can do it, so can I, is the message that our peer staff try to carry on to people. And so, you know, if you're not ready to call the crisis line, then call our Warmline in the evenings and talk to somebody. And you know, the point to every phone call is to help you to feel safe and to encourage you to think about how to help yourself be on the call. Whether you're calling our crisis line, our healthcare worker support line, or our Warmline, we just want you to know that we care. We're here for you. And the first thing you need to do is just make that call.
Absolutely. Awesome. And just so people know, is there any cost to this?
Oh, no. We're funded by the state of New Mexico Department of Human Services Behavioral Health Services Division. And because they also know, the state of New Mexico knows how important it is to make sure that we are removing barriers for people and that we are helping people to get to the right place at the right time. And by offering the service at no cost as a result of the state of New Mexico's funding and advocacy to continue to maintain this program, then this is a free service for all New Mexicans to engage in the moment that they need somebody to talk to.
Awesome.
Right, and it's absolutely a phenomenal program, I think, because um, especially during this time. I mean, all the time, but during this strange time that our whole planet is experiencing, right? Um, just because we have a pandemic, because we have the corona virus, doesn't mean that the opioid problem went away. That suicide just went away. The domestic violence just went away. I mean, in some instances, it might even be getting worse because people don't know where to go for help. Or if somebody was feeling bad or isolating or anything, you could just go outside or go to the park and talk to people, or go to a shopping center and just hang out in the mall or whatever. I know when I was going through my depressions and I'm a veteran, the lobby inside the VA is where people go, right? You can go in there and hang out and then go to the commissary, talk to some vet, and go to the commissary, and then you feel better and you can leave. But all those things are closed now, right? And so people are just sitting home, and that's what I love about Recovery Month, because it just, like Jeremy was saying, as we hope to make a difference. Everybody does their part. There's all these little programs and all these little pieces to the puzzle, but we're all trying to reach out to people in our way, to make our city a better place and our state a better place to live, man. Just to be healthier, and the service that you provide is really crucial, man. I know I don't comment a lot about it or memorize it or anything like that, but I see your data come through my emails every now and then. I'll look at it and I'll say, wow, they talk to a lot of people, a lot.
We do. We talk to over 5,000 a month.
Wow.
And from my experience, working in admissions to get people admitted into rehab centers, I gotta say, I do know the struggle of being on a 2-hour phone call with somebody that is absolutely plastered out of their mind. These are some special people that you have working for you, that can really endure through some of these tough phone calls and truly help. I don't know how they do it.
I am always amazed also at the resiliency our staff have, and feel so grateful to work amongst such a great group of people that are able to support people no matter what their mental health concern is that they're navigating through at that moment, and have the patience and endurance to continue to be empathetic during that phone call and be understanding, and in some cases to be a little bit more assertive, to say, you need to do you right now, and you need to understand that I'm trying to help you, and navigate through those difficult conversations that people have. And Adon, you're right. The rate of mental health and abuse and neglect and violence and substance use is increasing in our communities right now. And there's not enough people to recognize the signs and symptoms and to tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, let's go get some coffee and talk. And because we're in this virtual environment, and it's easy to turn the computer off and not have somebody see your signs and symptoms or not answer the phone. It's a little bit harder to try to step away from somebody when you're in person. And so in this community that we're currently living within, while we're social distancing, people are having behavioral health concerns rise, and we anticipate on seeing these rises just continue. Yesterday, I saw a report from the state of New Mexico that said they anticipate a 20% increase in behavioral health concerns through the end of the year. And that's a lot in a state that already had a lot. I mean, we're number one in the nation of death rates by suicide. We're on the top of all of the bad lists and on the bottom of all the good lists. And how do we change this? And how do we facilitate helping people when they don't know how to help themselves, when we're not right next to them to help them. And that's why I'm glad that you guys are encouraging people to understand the resources that are available, like our program. And I'm really glad I get to work for the program and spread the word about it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. And, the way that we do improve is by being a community and uplifting those that are the best of our communities. And we're happy that you are one of those individuals. And we're happy to know that you're not going to stop. So thank you so much for being involved, and thank you so much for being, a true leader in our community. So I don't think so. Every time we get on a live stream, we decide that we're going to talk for 10 to 15 minutes max. We have not been able to keep to that once, and I don't think we will ever. But we'll just keep on being wrong, and I like that.
It's a good thing to be wrong about.
Exactly. There's too much to talk about. So Wendy, you're wonderful. We love working with you. Anything else, Adam, before we want to close out?
No, thank you. Thank you for helping the people, Wendy. And have a beautiful day.
Well, thank you for having me here today. And I just want to acknowledge that I don't do it alone. You guys do it too. And so thank you for all that you all do as well.
It is about we. Exactly right. And Wendy, if you don't mind, please, if you could, I'm sure I have it somewhere, but if you could email me the information to just post under this so everybody has the right contact info for New Mexico Crisis and Access Line.
I sure will. Thank you. I appreciate that. You are partners with me to spread the message. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank you so much.
Ciao.